Hello, my name's Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for February 22nd to February 28th of 2015. And on February 22nd, we have the sun. You can see it here. It's with this black circle and a dot. It's in Pisces. It's in the 55th hexagram, and we can see the chop mark for the 55th hexagram on the outside of the wheel, numbered from bottom to top. The 55 goes yang, yin, yang, yang, yin, yin. And then the 55th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here is the 55th gate of spirit, abundance. Abundance is strictly a question of spirit, located in the solar plex center in an individual energy path in the knowing circuit called the channel of emoting, a design of moodiness that connects to the 39th gate of the provocateur, obstruction, the value of obstruction in provoking analysis, assessment, and reevaluation. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on February 29th. We've got the sun in the 55 with the earth in the 59, the north node in the 48, and the south node in the 21. Mercury is in the 41st gate, with both Venus and Mars are in the 25th gate. And then we've got Jupiter retrograde in the 7th gate. Saturn is in the 34th gate. And Uranus is also in the 21st gate with the south node. Neptune is in the 37th gate, and Pluto is in the 38th gate. Now, obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information is very helpful if you know your human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And you can get your human design chart by going to jovianarchive.com, click on the button that says Get Your Free Rave Chart, and enter in your birth information. The neutrino forecast is just a weather report. No matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And as you can see, we begin the week with no channel definitions due to the transit field. We're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi Ching line values daily, because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, the lines of the day, when talking about these daily shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. If your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. On February 22nd, it begins with the sun in the fourth line of the 55, and which is described as assimilation, exalted, the establishment of a framework that balances principles with the energy and leads inevitably to expansion and prosperity, the possible spirit that comes when emotional awareness and energy is balanced and principled. Detrimented, boundless energy that knows no restraint, boundless energy that ignores awareness at the risk of spirit. And fourth line days are about friendship, companionship, networking, social interaction, things of that nature. But later on the 22nd, the sun moves out of the opportunist line and moves into the heretical fifth line of the 55. And this happens at 3:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you want to convert that to your local time zone. The sun in the fifth line of the 55 is detrimented and described as growth, detrimented the integrative openness that in its broad acceptance of advice may eventually be eclipsed, and emotional openness where spirit is at risk from conditioning. The fifth line days are really about projection. Projection always goes positive, then negative. For the positive being they could do it, they'd be great at it, they're the perfect person for whatever. And then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it, doesn't want to do it for whatever reason, that expectation is not met, then they get punished. So it's a day where there's suspicion, but also universalization, where something can spread like a virus, whether it's a YouTube video or a Facebook post. And often we talk about that there's a great deal of suspicion and paranoia. As I've said before, it's only paranoia if they're not out to get you, and given projection, often they are. And seduction is also a theme of a fifth line day. And the 23rd, the sun moves into the sixth line. So right up here on the roof of the hexagram, in the role model line for the 55, the shift happening at 1:24 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 55-6 is selfishness, exalted acquisition, obsession that through alienating is still indirectly beneficial materially to others. The possibility of finding spirit through materialism. Detrimented, the where material abundance exists, but no one gets to share the light. The possibility that materialism becomes obsessive with a mean spirit that will not share. And six line days, we're on the roof of the hexagram, looking beyond what's happening in our immediate environment. Ross says not to get stuck with your head in the clouds because you'll end up with something banging into your kneecaps or your shins. This is a day where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around us because people are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like third line days, there can be certain dangers of not seeing a car coming or not seeing a bill coming. Also on the 23rd, Mercury moves from the 41st hexagram into the 19th hexagram and gate, and Venus leaves Mercury in the 25, and it moves up into the 17. Let's start with Mercury. In mythology, Mercury was the messenger of the gods. This is about communication and expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music. So what do you need to communicate in life? Well, we communicate the message of our design Mercury through the medium of our personality Mercury. So what might be communicated when Mercury is in the 19? Well, the pressure to make sure community exists and that it has its needed resources to support the tribe. This is the gate of wanting approach, that all things are interrelated is apparent and manifested through the action of approach. And with Mercury in the first line of the 19, this is interdependence exalted, the successful approach that does not lose its individual character in acceptance. The pressure of wanting without losing one's identity in when accepted by others. Detriment, the tendency once an approach is accepted to get stuck in continued reflection at the expense of continued development. The pressure for acceptance, which fears eventual rejection. And so with Venus moving from the 25 to the 17, in human design, Venus is very powerful, deeply misunderstood according to Ra. It brings morality, natural law, which is very powerful, and natural law in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us. And what disturbs you on a moral level? Your design and personality Venuses tell us about a moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life. And if you don't act with moral clarity, Ross says that Venus can be unkind in its retribution. And Venus is in the 17th gate of opinions, following the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. Venus is detrimented in the first line of the 17, which is described as openness, detrimented, a tendency to limit openness to aesthetically pleasing stimuli, the possibility to limit opinions to what is pleasing. And then on the 24th, the sun and earth move. The sun moves from the 55th gate in hexagram and joins Neptune in the 37, and the earth moves from the 59th hexagram to the 40, which brings us this definition. of the channel of community. And so we'll talk about that in just a moment. So we've got the earth. It's in the 40th gate of aloneness, deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. And this shift happens at 11:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37th gate of friendship, the family, the manifestation macro and microcosmically of the organic nature of communities. And the sun in the first line of the 37 is the mother, the father, a position of inherent respect that ensures a focus for the development of guidelines. Exalted harmony is the key to successfully is the key to successful maintenance of relationships. It's only through harmony that the beauty and the values of the family can endure. Friendship that is rooted in sensitivity and ensures harmony. Detrimented, no planet in detriment. So now we are in a new hexagram, and the first line, as I've talked about before, the first, second, and third lines as part of the lower trigram are more a personal process. So people are more looking inward, more absorbed in their own process. The theme of the first line day is a fear or an anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it's a day to study, not to act. It's a day to look into things, not to jump. It's a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or don't know. Also on the 24th, Mars moves from the 25th gate in the hexagram and joins Venus up here in the 17. And so Mars is in the gate of opinions, following the ancient law that those who wish to rule must know how to serve. Mars is exalted in the first line of the 17. But also it's detrimented by Venus also being in the 17. So when you look at the just now chart, what you're going to see is the exaltation being the upward pointing triangle, the detriment being the downward pointing triangle. So it's going to look like a six-pointed star next to Mars when it's in the 17-1 on the 24th. So this is Mars in the line of openness, exalted, the energy to sustain a broad spectrum of stimuli, and the possibility of having many opinions. Detrimented, a tendency to limit openness to aesthetically pleasing stimuli, the possibility to limit opinions to what is pleasing. And Ross spoke about Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. And Mars represents the warrior archetype in mythology. And by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. And so back to the 4037. The 4037, along with the 3420 and the 4323, they're all channels that are formed by polarities. Meaning that the gates that form the channel are 180 degrees opposite each other in the wheel. So with the Sun-Earth axis in the 3740, we have the channel of community. And it will be with us until March 2nd. This definition brings the energy where people wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live that out. It's a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes it becomes more important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance becomes important in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community and on a mystical level where they fit into the universe and what their true purpose is. This impacts people as they may think they need to be supportive of those around them, and they get pulled into things related to community. With the defined ego center, people without a defined heart center may feel as if they have something to prove and make promises or commitments that are not correct for them. And the defined solar plexus center, for those who do not have emotional definition, this channel can bring the unfamiliar a wave of emotions and perhaps lead to acting confrontational. And then on the 25th, the sun moves into the second line, so out of the line of the investigator into the line of the hermit. Again, 37th gate, with the shift happening at 10:07 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37-2 is responsibility exalted, the understanding of the principle of individual responsibility as the foundation for successful cooperation, the possibility of friendship through individual responsibility, detrimented a tendency to point out the responsibility of others, the possibility that friendship will lead to pointing out the responsibility of others. Second line days, everyone's waiting for something. They're waiting to be called because of natural talents. This is where people get really stuck in their own trip. It's not a great day to have a large social event because folks would rather stay home under the influence of the sun in the line of the hermit. On the 26th, the sun then moves into the third line, so up into the martyr line of the 37. The shift happening at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37-3 is even-handedness. The success of any group is dependent on maintaining order, exalted, the ability to judge what behavior is appropriate and react in a balanced manner to transgressions. The possibility to have the sensitivity to know what behavior is appropriate in a relationship. Detrimented and ironic tendency to either test incessantly the borders of acceptability or to respond to the very same tendency in others with severity. The possible lack of sensitivity to what behavior is appropriate. And third line days in the line of the martyr, things bump into you on the third line energy. So be careful on the roads, be careful of things in your environment, whether it's a swinging door or somebody's elbow. It's a day when we have bonds made and broken, a trial and error process, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. It's a good material day and might be good for doing business or work on the material plane, but you have to be careful because things can go wrong. But those things that do go wrong can lead to discovery. And then on the 27th, the sun moves out of the lower trigram into the upper trigram in the fourth line of the 37, with the shift being at 6:53 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37-4 is described as leadership by example. Any member of the family may take on a leading role through exemplary behavior. Exalted, the manifestation of the highest principles in everyday practical affairs, the possibility of highest principles in all relationships resulting in a leadership role. Detrimented, a conservatism that generally only accepts the leadership of the father, who may or may not be a valued role model. The possibility of being insensitive to the leadership of anyone other than those accepted by tradition. And fourth line days, this is where we shift in the line of the opportunist, the shifting moving from more of that inward perspective that we have in the lower trigram, a personal process, to more of an outward perspective of the upward trigram, transpersonal process, with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking, and so it's great for social interactions. People are more open to networking, to being friendly. Fourth line days would be a better day for a social event. And then on the 28th, the sun then moves into the fifth line of the 37. So here we are in the heretical fifth line of the 37th hexagram. The shift happening at 5:17 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37.5 is described as love, natural and unaffected devotion to the family, exalted natural harmony and perfect sharing, natural harmony and sharing possible through friendship, detrimented emotional dependency that often turns love into hatred, the possibility of dependence turning love into hate. Fifth line days, again, we talked about the heretic, and this is really about projection and you know, the other themes associated with this is universalization, suspicion, paranoia, and of course seduction. So also on the 28th, Mercury moves from the 19 and it moves into the 13th gate. And Venus moves from the 17th gate, leaving Mars, and into the 21st gate, joining Uranus and the South Node. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. This is communication, as we talked about earlier. So what might be communicated when Mercury is in the 13th gate? Well, we might hear more secrets. This is the gate of the listener, the fellowship of man, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework that inspires humanistic cooperation. And in the first line of the 13, Mercury is in the line of empathy, the ability to relate and continue and commune with equanimity, exalted harmony through affection, the role of openness in listening to others with affection, detrimenting the politician kissing babies, an openness that is never free of motives. And also on the 28th, we mentioned that Venus moves from the 17, leaving Mars, and into the 21st gate, joining Uranus and the South Node. And we mentioned that in human design, Venus is about morality and values. So Venus is in the 21st gate of the hunter, the huntress, fighting through the justified and necessary use of power in overcoming deliberate and persistent interference. In the first line of the 21, this is a warning. The use of force as a last resort, exalted the fierceness to be respected without recourse to action, the power and the ego to ensure respect, detrimenting an inherent peacefulness that too often turns a necessary warning into a plea, a lack of will power that is focused, that is forced to ask for respect. And as we're wrapping up the week with the sun transiting through the gate of spirit and then into the gate of friendship, I thought we might discuss this upcoming change in the global cycle, as the precession of the equinox, which we talked about in detail last week, is moving from the 37.1 into the 55.6 in 2027. The Earth experiences a slow wobble on its axis that over time moves the degree of the sun during the vernal equinox backwards through the zodiacal signs and the corresponding hexagrams. The spring equinox, the sun has been in the 37th hexagram, first line, since the early 1960s. And in 2027, it backs into the sixth line of the 55th hexagram. That brings a mutation to the 55th gate and the solar plexus. So currently, the solar plexus is an awareness center along with the splenic and ajna center, and a motor along with the root, sacral, and ego centers. But after the mutation, the solar plexus in children born in 2027 and afterwards will only be an awareness center. The motor that generates the emotional wave will remain in those born before the mutation, but those born with the mutation will only have an awareness center in the solar plexus. This new form of human being is called the rave, and this will mean that those folks born with this mutation that have the 2212 or the 3635 will have those as projector channels. They will not be manifesting channels anymore because the solar plexus will not be a motor. So we're going to see an increase in projectors born after 2027, a decrease in manifestors born after 2027. We're also going to see an increase in a quad right variable as humans continue to shift from being strategic left brain mind thinkers to being receptive right brain mind thinkers. And we can already see this shift. It's evident in the increase in the diagnoses of autism spectrum disorders. Overall, this will be a major shift for humanity. We're currently experiencing the wrap up of the global cycle of the 37th hexagram as we see the decay of humanity, particularly in the support safety net programs that are slowly being dismantled as we move towards a new era of the individual. When Neptune's veil was transiting the 55, I believe most people were blinded to how extraordinary this change will be. It seems to be becoming clearer now that Neptune has moved into the 37 hexagram and no longer bringing its veil to the gate where the mutation will occur. And as we look at the cross of planning associated with the 37, the 40, the 16, and the 9, when we have spoken about the 3740 and its support for the community. So what about the 16 and the 9? Well, the 16th gate is the gate of skills, and the 9th gate is the potential to be able to work with the energy for detail and concentration. The 4037 is the background frequency for the end of the week with the sun and earth in that axis where everything is dedicated to community. The 16 in the cross of planning brings us skills for science and education that are shared to support the community, which brought us the complex global community that we currently live in. As the breakdown of the cross of planning continues, and as we move towards the cross of the sleeping phoenix and the empowerment of individuals, not as leaders, but as guides through acting as themselves. Ross said, the future is about the individual. It isn't about collective dependency. It's not about being able to trust that someone is going to be able to act on your behalf. And we can see this as infrastructure is decaying. Here in the U.S., and I suspect elsewhere, our government is underfunding education so that it will collapse and be ripe for privatization of it by individuals, which is also what happened with the prison system. Citizens United has made individual fortunes more politically important than votes. Social Security and water rights are moving towards privatization. Transportation systems and the infrastructure are decaying and collapsing as well. Human design is about using our strategy and authority to inspire our unique integrity regardless of what's going on in the macrocosm. So act as yourself and observe the global movie in this time of transition. So no matter what energies are conditioning you during the week, just remember that this experience is about being a passenger riding in a vehicle driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery. Let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day we have is a blessing, no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of a lifetime on the world stage. So take some time to observe your movie, observe your play, as well as act your part. Remember, you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. I'd like to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on March 1st, 2015. Should be available on the 28th of February, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook or Blogger or YouTube. There's New World Birth presences in all those places. And I encourage you to share this information as video or as text as widely as you choose. And I invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me, as I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And as always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. As always, I have a great deal of gratitude and look forward to connecting with you in the future.